Hey everyone, welcome to my new channel, Reality Report with Ryan. For those that already know me, welcome. For those of you that don't, what you can expect is political news, both the US and some abroad. You can also expect commentary on how the woke mind virus is destroying the mental health of a certain group of people. I think we all know what I'm talking about. I also react to crazy lefty TikToks sometimes, and I also react to interview on the street where people are interviewing crazy lefties and just going over the crazy things that they think about and say. So if you're not already, make sure to subscribe, hit the like button, and lose your mind with the rest of us. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. As some of you, if not all of you know, I've talked about Zohran Mamdani, the mayoral candidate for the Democrats in New York City, who may actually win. He's a total socialist, if you didn't already know that. He's only held like 3 jobs during his life for very short periods each. He's just not, he's a nepotism baby. Like he's literally on camera talking about that. But I thought all these people hated capitalism and they hated when people are handed everything. But I guess not if you're an Islamic terrorist supporter. Now, we have another one that nobody seems to be talking about in Minneapolis running for mayor. He doesn't have as checkered of a background as Mamdani does, but there are some serious red flags, and we're going to get into that right now. So here's where I first saw this. Brigitte Gabrielle posted about him. His name is Omar Fateh, and he's running for mayor of Minneapolis. She says he would be worse than Zohran Mamdani by a lot. So this is Omar Fateh, and I looked up some stuff about his legislation. He is currently a state senator. He has been since 2022, I believe, and he has actually been successful at pushing some legislation through, which is more than I can say for most Democrats. But let's look at the legislation that he has pushed through. Okay, so if you guys did not know this, and I did not think about this for almost a year after starting my first channel, that you can use ChatGPT to find stuff that you cannot find easily. You can literally ask it questions like I asked it. Can you tell me about legislation that Omar Fateh has been involved in and how he voted on legislation during his time in the state Senate? We should be looking this up regarding our Republicans, our Democrats, everyone, because this is such a much easier way to find things. So here's one piece of legislation that I actually agree with, and maybe some of you might disagree with me, but the fentanyl test strips to test substances for fentanyl were considered paraphernalia, and so they were actually illegal to have. Now, if you guys know drug addicts, like I know drug addicts, and I know some people think that I'm some square over here. Listen, y'all, I have lived. I have lived many, many lives in my 40 years. Okay, I know drugs, and I know drug users. I have been one. Maybe I'll talk about that in the future. I don't know. Luckily, I did not get caught on luckily I did not get hooked on something that was really, really serious for a long period of time. I'm just one of those people that can do some crazy stuff and realize I have to stop doing it. And then eventually I stop doing it. Thank God. Because otherwise I would probably be dead, at least toothless. And gross, like sunken in face and all that. I'll take the fat face over the sunken in face any day. So I have an opinion on this, and I believe that this was a good piece of legislation. Now, I'm not saying that I'm for this guy, okay? So don't get it twisted. All right, we'll get there. But this piece of legislation that he helped pass is something that should have been passed, in my opinion, because you're not going to be able to, you can't just say like, oh, we're going to make these test strips illegal so everyone's going to stop doing drugs. That's not real. That's not realistic. That's not reality. That's not the world we live in. So making these things decriminalized I believe is a measure that can save lives. Not to mention, marijuana is legal probably in Minnesota. I believe. I haven't looked that up. It's just a thought that came to my head. But there have been instances where marijuana has been laced with fentanyl and other things that are not considered heavy drugs or whatever, things that can really kill you, somewhat socially accepted, that have been laced with fentanyl. So I see no reason why fentanyl test strips to make sure you're not going to die should be criminalized at any moment. So I agree with this legislation here. Now, this next piece, through free tuition initiative for families earning less than $80,000 a year. That's probably the majority of citizens in Minneapolis. The bill passed. It passed. Now, I don't agree with this. First of all, there's a bunch of jobs that you don't need a college education for that pay over $80,000 a year. I was the recipient of one of those jobs. And there are many more available to me if I want to go back and start working like a normal person again. But I'm not doing that currently because I'm a crazy person trying to start a YouTube channel. So I don't agree with that one. That's one of those socialist things. Uber and Lyft driver protections. This was actually a bill that it passed but was vetoed in 2024. It was reintroduced and passed with one vote, DFL Senate margin, and signed into law. So this was actually something that established minimum pay standards and new protections for rideshare drivers. I don't really have an opinion on this one. I think that it could be both a positive thing or potentially, I'm not really concerned about Uber's bottom line. Y'all can have your own opinion on that. Share below in the comments. Parking minimums reform. Introduce a statewide bill to eliminate mandatory parking minimums, making Minnesota a pioneer on the issue. That's interesting. Higher education and student support. This was basically providing funding for certain programs for students. The other bill, sponsorship, introduced bills on mining permits, workforce training. So this is like his climate thing. So he also has introduced bills about like climate funding and stuff like that. We can have our own opinions on that. I personally think that a lot of these climate funds, these climate organizations exist to make money. I do not personally believe that all of these climate organizations are actually practicing what their mission is. I believe that they are just businesses making money and getting taxpayer funding to do so. And a lot of them are also funneling the money back into the pockets of the Democrat politicians that push this yet know nothing about it. So we can all have our own opinions on that, the whole climate funding thing, spending, but some of this stuff does mix into that socialist agenda, like raising the minimum wage by $4 over the next 4 years. He's stated some other things like that. Now, I looked into him personally, into public statements that he has made, and I found, unlike Mamdani, he has never verbally stated support for Hamas or other terrorist organizations, but he has never condemned them. He is pro-Palestinian. If you guys don't know how I feel about that, stick around because eventually you'll find out. I think I made a video or two about how I feel about that last week, because most of these people don't know what Palestine is. They don't know the history of it. They don't know that they've been offered their state 3 times and they refused each time. They don't know that they've elected several terrorist organizations, we can call them. I mean, the Palestinian Authority also it supports certain terrorist activities. They voted for Hamas. The only other option that they had to vote for was also a terrorist organization. Like, why is Iran only giving the, it's Iran that's running all of this. So that's a little bit of that. I won't go on and on and on about this. We're at 12 minutes. But I looked into him. He has never verbally stated, like, Mamdani made a rap song in support of the Central Park Five, which were convicted as a terrorist group, sending money. They were raising funding for Hamas and sending it to them as a established terrorist group. So he made a song in support of them and Hamas. He has he's at Mamdani has been at all of these pro-Palestinian events. Of course, now he's trying to hide all of that. But this guy is different. So this guy actually was, and there's a lot of hateful comments. So I'm just gonna say this too. Y'all that have been around for a while know that I am not biased towards, I mean, I'm more biased towards the right a little bit, center right, because they have more common sense. The far right, not so much. And the left and the far left, not so much, because they've lost all of my confidence and faith and respect. But in defense, some of these people online are telling him to go back to Somalia and stuff like that. And that's where the right gets things wrong. They go too far. They're pendulums. The pendulums. They're swinging too far. And because these people, most of these people are just stupid people that cannot see past what is right in front of their face, no matter what side they're on. They can't see what's right in front of their face. They don't ever look anything up. Nothing. This man was born in Washington, D.C. Okay, so don't be going on here saying something stupid like go back to Somalia. He never lived in Somalia. His parents did, but they came here and migrated legally, and he is a United States citizen. He always has been. He was born here. So let's not share false information. But what we can say is that he has never condemned Hamas. He has never condemned terrorism. There are no statements that he has ever made condemning any terrorist group whatsoever. So I also want to look into a couple other questions that I asked ChatGPT. So there is a very large Somalian population in Hennepin County in Minneapolis, about 20,000 people, I believe, and it's basically an entire Muslim community. And I asked what the crime rates are. I said, can you find me crime rate statistics regarding Somalian citizens in Minneapolis? And I'm sure because of our equal rights and all of that, which we need, there's some reason why they don't track crime rates based off of ethnicity. Well, they do, because we have black, white, Latino, and Asian. We only have those though. We don't have like Somalian and Mexican and stuff like that, which I think at this point in time, maybe it's time to begin with all of these threats that are hitting us now, and all of these people from different cultures, I'll say, because some of them are American citizens entering our government. Some of them were born here is what I mean. All of them are American citizens, but some of them were born here, some of them were born abroad, like Ilhan Omar. Um, so there's no way to actually track exactly what this is. So we can only go off of basically the FBI reports on Somali affiliated gangs, like the Somali Outlaws, which has been around since the early 2000s, possibly even possibly even earlier than that. So this is something that's been going on for a while. So while this is going to minimize, it's going to minimize the fact that of these Somalian gangs. However, the percentage in Minneapolis of people with Somali ancestry is only 5.18% of residents, but their gangs represent about 10% of Minneapolis's gang membership. So their gang membership is higher, their percentage is higher than the population percentage in all of Minneapolis. And they engage in a range of gang related crimes such as robbery, burglary, assault, credit card fraud, and even sex trafficking. All right, so you got that. Now, here's a couple of other things about them, because this is the only way that we can even look into this and see, is there a problem with these people. There's like 2,100 of them that are members of gangs. There's over 20,000 of them. So I don't know, you guys make the decision. Maybe it's not such a widespread thing, but being that they're only 5% of the population and they represent 10% of the gangs in Minneapolis, it kind of raises a red flag to me. Like, this is a problem. And most of these gangs are interested in doing things like selling drugs, or maybe even, I don't know. Let's see. It says, yeah, drug based. Most of these gangs are drug based. However, the Somalis are more credit card fraud, gun and phone store burglaries. There's a famous gun store burglary from like 2010 or somewhere around there. Witness intimidation and trafficking, so controlling people. Reliably used remittance payments to resolve familial feuds and may not cooperate with prosecutions. Were linked to a notable, there it is, 2008 gun store burglary in Minnetonka, where the Somali outlaws stole dozens of firearms, several later used in violent crimes. Had at least 20 young men from the Twin Cities. This was one that I wanted to mention. Had at least 20 young men from the Twin Cities who traveled to Somalia in 2007 and 2008 to train or fight with Al-Shabaab, which is a terrorist organization. One man transitioned from a gang recruit to extremist recruiter. So they're recruiting extremists is what they're doing. There was also more recently, at least 22 to 45 individuals from the Somali American community traveled abroad to join Al-Shabaab or ISIS, both terrorist organizations, between 2007 and 2018. They're trying to prevent law enforcement from tracking this because the Democrats want to they're so afraid of Islamophobia. But the majority of people that are calling this out are just calling out facts. So they're not tracking this, and now we have sleeper cells of terrorists here in the United States. And while we know that they're here, I don't think they know where they're at, and they don't know where they're from. Like, and they're not tracking any of this. This would be helpful information to track, because if you're letting in a large population of a certain culture, they're not just going to come here and assimilate into our culture. That's the problem. You know, there things like sexual assault and burglaries and other assaults, things like that in these type of countries, that's a part of their culture. Like, a lot of these people think that that's just how people live. And those people are not good candidates for assimilation into Western culture. There is a saying that Islam is not compatible with Western culture, and it's really not. Even though there's millions of them here, we don't know what's really going through their heads. We know what's in their book. We know what's in their book because we can read. And what's in their book, it's scary. It is actually scary. And while many of them claim to not believe that they are charged by Allah to create a global caliphate, aka Islamic government, and delete all of the people that won't accept Islam from this planet, we don't know that they really believe that. All of this is being carried out, all this terrorism is being carried out by people who believe that they're doing what God wants them to do. And that came from the Quran. So I can't trust these people. I can't, because it also tells them that they can use what's called taqiyya and lie. So I don't trust it. And I think that we need to start tracking these things and really taking into consideration, are there groups of people from certain cultures that are actually causing problems at a higher rate than American citizens? And I think that we would find that the answer is yes. Okay. because not only do they consider all the other things that I mentioned before as a part of regular daily life, they also believe that women are property and that they can marry little girls. Muhammad married Aisha at 6, consummated the marriage at 9, and abused her. That is documented in the Hadith of Muhammad, which I also have. It's documented. She talked about it, if she really existed. Because there's a lot of theory that Muhammad never actually existed, and that this isn't really a religion, it's a cult. It is a government. It is a way to control people. So I'll let you all decide, but I don't think that these people should be in our government. I don't, and I'm not saying all Muslims, but I'm saying if you cannot openly on camera denounce these terrorist groups, then you should not be in our government, because that means that you're afraid of what might happen to you if you do, which means you have some type of connection to these people, or it means that you really believe that they have a right to do what they're doing, going after Jews in Israel, going after people in the United States, going after people in Europe, essaying little girls in Europe, and then the European government covering it up. It's just crazy how the West is allowing these people to infiltrate our governments. But you know what? Thank God we have red states, because that's not happening here. It's not happening here, y'all. So tell me in the comments, what do you guys think about this? Do you guys think that we're going to see more and more of these candidates pop up? I'm going to talk about it every single time that I find one, because I think that people need to know, and people really need to wake up to the facts and what's really going on, especially over in the Middle East, because there are so many lies going on. I don't understand how these people survive. Like, they can't even Google a certain, like a one single thing. It's just insane. So tell me, what do you guys think about this? Leave a comment below. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss an episode, and I will see you on the next one.